Hello, let me welcome you to the conversation segment of the Signature Show this Sunday afternoon. Always a warm Sunday in Abuja, the Nigerian Federal Capital. This time of the year, sweating, not to worry, is in the nature of things. But is it in the nature of things in Ebonyi State? They call it the defection crisis in Ebonyi State. Is it a political crisis or a judicial crisis? And what I mean by that is this. Last week, a court in Abuja sacked the governor of Ebonyi State and his deputy. They had defected from the People's Democratic Party, the party on whose platform they were elected, to the All Progressive Congress, the governing party at the center. But Abuja court last week said you could not take a mandate from a people on a platform and then switch. That's novel, isn't it, in Nigerian politics? Is it novel, really? Now, this afternoon, I have Mr. Okorafor Tochukwu. Tochukwu is the chairman of the People's Democratic Party in Ebonyi State. Beneficiaries of the Abuja court judgment. Okorie, you're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you.
Let's begin it this way. When this news broke last week, there was news in circulation also that an Abakaliki High Court had given a judgment contrary to the one given in Abuja. Was there a suit by the PDP in respect of this same matter in Abakaliki, and therefore were you shopping for judgment?
Well, you have put it very rightly. It would have amounted to a gross abuse of court process if PDP had gone to a court, especially a court of coordinate jurisdiction, with the same matter as the one ruled upon by the Federal High Court in Abuja. What happened, in essence, a certain Senator Sonny Obuoji, who had been candidate of APC in 2019 governorship election,
yes,
who contested against David Umahi in that election, then of the PDP, had gone to court, an Ebonyi State High Court sitting in Abakaliki, to request the court to pronounce him governor, being that Dave Umahi, by the operation of the law, had vacated that office, and he, being the first runner-up in that election, ought to be sworn in as the governor. The court, in that judgment, ruled that he had no grounds, that the number one, that the court had no jurisdiction. However, even in the merit, that is a claim that lacked merit, for whatever reason. So he awarded a cost against Sonny Obuoji. Now, it's important for the public to discountenance the deliberate disinformation that was pushed into the public space, that PDP went to court and lost, and was fined 500,000 by a court sitting in Abakaliki. That is not correct. The correct position is that it was an APC person, seeking to validate the seat of an APC governor, who now went to court, pretending to be seeking for some sort of relief, it was all just arranged.
Let us not talk about an arrangement. In other words, why the senator went to court was that David Umahi, having vacated, having defected, and lost the mandate of the people on the platform of the PDP, therefore he was the right person now to be declared the governor, being the runner-up. Okay. Now, the Abuja case, the PDP went to court.
Yes.
In the Abuja case. I'm not going to ask you because you're not a lawyer, but can you educate me on some of the major reasons why PDP went to court in Abuja?
Well, the major reason is not far-fetched. In our considered opinion, we thought that by the operation of the law, His Excellency Governor David Umahi had effectively vacated office when in 2020 he defected from PDP to APC. And that is because there are plethora of authorities, where it has been shown that electoral votes are cast
and won by
a political party, not an individual, not the candidate. So the votes belong to the political party. There are authorities to that effect, not one, not two, not three. That was the case when His Excellency Governor Umahi was sitting as governor in Rivers State, and then that was upturned by in favor of Rotimi Amechi by a ruling by no other than no less a court than the Supreme Court of this country, and so on. You could count a number of authorities to that effect. So we thought that relying on those authorities, that David Umahi ought not to be governor after he had defected to APC, being that the mandate which he enjoyed as governor actually belonged to the party and not to David Umahi.
Now, as the Abuja court has pronounced that he should leave that office, what happens to the legislators who also vacated the office and followed him and defected? Did PDP also seek a pronouncement?
Of course, there's a pronouncement by the same court, by the same judge, in a different matter instituted by PDP against the 16 honorable members of the Ebonyi House of Assembly, to the same effect that by the operation of the law that they had vacated their office when they defected. Of course, they exercised their right of association, and defected to a party of their choice. We didn't have quarrel with that. We just thought that they ought not to have gone away with the mandate, with the votes, electoral votes that rightly belonged to PDP. Yeah.
Now, Okori, a governor sacked, the deputy sacked, 16 legislators sacked. That could create some confusion, some disquiet in Ebonyi State. What is the consequence, what is likely consequence of these pronouncements on political stability of Ebonyi State?
There is there's no likely consequence that is untoward. The consequence, and thankfully the judgment and the judge did not leave anybody in doubt. There was a consequential order, which is that INEC should receive from PDP nominees to replace the candidates they lost. Because the loss of a candidate through defection could be likened to the loss of a candidate through death, like as in the case of Abubakar Udu, for which the party now nominated Yaya Bello, who became the beneficiary.
And there was no
other election. There's no argument. So talking about consequence is neither here nor there, because number one, the court has asked PDP to nominate replacement for all of the seats, from governor to deputy governor to the legislators, as it were. And that is simply what we are going to do. The state is peaceful, except for a number of skirmishes that I was informed about earlier today, where APC had gone to carry hoodlums from everywhere around the around the state, to muster in Abakaliki and be causing trouble everywhere. So except for that, the place is quiet, and people are actually in a joyful mood, for reasons maybe that I will talk about later.
I don't want to completely agree with you, because the governor, the former governor, will I be right?
Yes, that's the former governor.
Just said on Tuesday that he remains the governor of Ebonyi State, and that nobody can get him out of government house. That is not the kind of statement that will create happiness, amity, and quiet, and that's why I'm worried of the likely consequences.
Yes, you are right there, and that is why he has also gone ahead to give life to those statements by going around the state, importing hooligans into the city, into the state capital to foment trouble. But thankfully, nobody is joining issues with him. His grandstanding amounts to nothing, because he's not a law unto himself. He can never be. And until we begin a monarchical system where the king or queen is above the law, every Nigerian is subject to the laws of the land. And that is what is known as rule of law. And to that extent, His Excellency Governor Umahi is subject to judicial pronouncements, no matter what he says, no matter the tirade he pours out, no matter the diatribe, everything he has said or done is inconsequential in the face of the law, because at the end of the day, he must obey the pronouncement of the court. Of course, subject to his right to appeal.
I was coming to that, subject to his right to appeal, because he said yesterday, in fact on Wednesday, that he has a right to appeal and that he will take up that opportunity to appeal. Is the PDP ready to meet him at the appeal court?
That is, as you can see, the clutches of straw by a drowning man. All right. Now, if he meant all of the verbosity he engaged in, calling and everybody around, calling them names and all of that, if he were not rattled, by the pronouncement of the court, why does he seek appeal? He said nobody could remove him from the seat, not Justice Okorafor, not anybody. But then, surprisingly, as early as 7 o'clock this morning, he already ran to the Court of Appeal to seek protection. And it's his right so to do. PDP is committed to justice and the rule of law. As far as we are concerned, we know that if the right things are done, His Excellency Governor Umahi ought not to be governor today. As a matter of fact, he left that office in 2020 when he left the People's Democratic Party. And therefore, we are very well prepared to pursue justice as far as the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of the land, if need be. But I believe that APC is may not be a very credible party, but then it is people by human beings who should or ought to be rational. They ought to know that it's a lost battle they are fighting and should take the path of honor, and give up, because the judgment is clear and the basis for that judgment is also clear. Maybe I should go further to say, I read the 8 grounds of appeal this morning, and it was all ridiculous to me, because none of those 8 grounds of appeal address the basic principle of law on which the judgment was delivered. The grounds of appeal ramble around all kinds of things, leaving out the substance of the judgment, which is to the effect that the electoral votes that brought Nwezo Umahi to power belonged to PDP and not to David Umahi and Eric Kelechi Igwe. All right, so to that extent, you could already see that the appeal is dead on arrival. There is no two ways about that. Without meaning to be
prejudge the
outcome of the appeal. I know the matter is prejudiced already, and we will not force a fait accompli on their lordships, the justices of the appeal court. But it is in the public domain. There are grounds of appeal, and a rational human being would readily see that they carefully left out the substance of the judgment, and it is unfortunate as far as I'm concerned.
Let me. Yes. INEC has a role to play in this matter because the Abuja High Court directed INEC to accept replacements. What does PDP in Ebonyi State expect now from INEC?
Yeah, because PDP is a law-abiding organization, practically the only national party that exists in Nigeria as of today, it will be unlikely in any event that the party will toe the path of brigandage as does APC most of the times. We are prepared to walk the fine lines of the law, which is to say INEC ought to, within the limits of the law itself, obey the judgment of court. That is to say, first, INEC must be in receipt of the judgment duly served on it, consider it with all its legal implications, and side by side the notice of appeal so filed. Now, as far as I know, as at now, I'm not aware that there is a stay of execution yet, and therefore, on receipt of that judgment signed by the judge, INEC ought to immediately issue certificates of return to nominees of PDP for the office of governor, executive governor, and deputy governor, respectively. So that is what INEC ought to be doing in the moment, barring any notice of stay of execution being filed and granted. Because as far as I'm concerned, His Lordship, the presiding judge that delivered the judgment, will be the one to determine in his wisdom and opinion whether the judgment, the enforcement of the judgment ought to be stayed in any case. And that hasn't been done. And to that extent, INEC is obligated to comply with the spirit and letters of that judgment, and that is where I stand.
Okay, look, I have a little worry. I keep calling it worry. Here, a governor elected on the platform of a party and his deputy defect and work against the very party that elected them. Now again, some legislators elected on the platform of the same party also jump ship. Where is the authority of political party in the whole of this? And let me tell you why I'm asking you the question. In the Second Republic, Adisa Akiloye will sit down as the chairman of the National Party of Nigeria. Alhaji Shehu Shagari, the president of the Federal Republic, will sit down as any other member of the party. And the party structure and authority determine what the party does and what its candidates do. How is it that a governor moves a candidate of the party and then he drags along legislators elected on the platform of the party, and the entire party machinery and authority look on? Where is the authority of political parties in Nigeria?
Thank you. It's a very important question that you have asked that borders on the ability of the jurisprudence in a particular jurisdiction to correct mischiefs, as well. Having said that, there has been a gradual erosion or if you like, emasculation of the powers of a political party. And that is because the Constitution that we have today makes the executive arm of government a super arm, if you like. They almost have superpowers, all right? And because they have those kind of powers, especially the power of the purse, so that they have like the proverbial knife and yam, both rest in the hands of the governor or in the hands of the president in either case. So everyone else goes cap in hand to them for their sustenance. So does the political party. The political party now depends on stipends that governors and presidents, could channel, to them. Now, which is a clear program of emasculation and erosion of the powers of the political party. However, I believe that this democracy is still in nascent stages, fledgling as it were. I believe that we will develop over time and get to where we were in the First Republic and the Second Republic, where the political party wielded the power that rightly belonged to it, but for today, one of the ills or mischiefs that will be corrected by this judgment, which I hope will be sustained, is that no more will rascality be condoned in the political process, where someone will just enter into a very immoral agreement with a third party to say, okay, don't worry, when I win, I will come over. Just give me the ticket. When I win, I win on the platform of party A, and then I'm coming over to meet you on party B. Just create the window for me to win, which is what played out in some of these elections, including that of His Excellency David Umahi. We could tell from the day one his romance with APC. All right, you could tell that there had been that understanding in 2019 that, when I win, I will come over to APC, and he followed it to the letter. So, but going forward, and I hope this very, very well-researched judgment of his Lordship, Justice Okorafor, will be sustained across board, so that some of these things can be curtailed. A governor can no longer go into negotiation with some sort of arrangement that, okay, when I win, I come over to your party. The legislators can no longer just wake up one morning and abandon the platform that brought them to the legislature, and then go to a different platform just at will. Since 1999, you see there have been just all manner of crisscrossing, and this particular jurisprudence has never been thoroughly subjected to any form of test. This is the first time this thing is subjected to a legal test and a judicial pronouncement. So I hope that these things are corrected.
Okay, there's a sentence I wrote on my paper as you were speaking. I said, from Okore's argument, are there political parties in Nigeria? Let me tell you why I asked that question. Political parties are supposed to be an aggregation of people who believe in certain principles, ideologies, and convictions. And you determine for yourselves how you will run governance and how you will appropriate and apportion power in the interest of the people and society. Now, if you join a party out of conviction, why is it so easy for you to dump your conviction and jump ship? Were you convinced in the first instance? And are there really political parties of convinced people in Nigeria?
Okay, my response to that question would be that definition of what a political party is actually relative, because there is no standard definition of what a political party is. Now, talking about ideologies, that could be the basis of coming together. But also, there could also be other considerations. For example, interests. Now, I see...
Your power ambition.
Yes, I see political parties in the Nigerian context as an aggregation of like interests. In other words, people with similar interests, pursuing similar objectives. And what those objectives are or may be is a different conversation altogether. But talking about ideology, very little of it is found in the Nigerian context of political party. Okay? And that is why it is so easy for someone to seek the full expression of his interests wherever he could find it.
Yeah, but
you would agree that they say in politics there are no permanent enemies or permanent friends, but permanent interests. So it is this interest which is usually very, very parochial in nature that drive people into taking certain decisions as to where they go.
I was almost interjecting.
Yes, please.
And that is because you said people of like interest aggregate to form political parties. David Umahi, your governor, was in PDP with people of like interest, supposedly, isn't it? So when did it turn to be people of dislike interest? I heard President Muhammadu Buhari congratulating him for having the courage to jump ship. Did he discover his interest, real interest, a little late?
Apparently so, you may argue. However, my take would be that he has always had a different interest from the rest of us in PDP, which he successfully concealed. You know, that is the interest that has taken a life of its own. You know, the moment he found opportunity to let those interests out. He really never belonged to PDP. That is what it means. Going by your argument, if he were of like interest with us, and PDP's interest is found in the direct principles of governance, you know, as stated in the Constitution, which is good governance. That is to say, that the security and welfare of the people will be the direct principles of state policy and all of those things. The interest of PDP derives directly from that provision of the Constitution. And the moment your personal interest runs counter or conflicts with those ideals, then you begin to seek other platforms that will accommodate those parochial interests. That, I think, is what had happened
anyway,
to...
I do not want to draw a conclusion that what you intended to say was that PDP will want to govern in the interest of the people and blah, blah, blah. The man who jumped ship had jumped into a ship that does not want to govern that way. I didn't say so. However, Ebonyi State is quiet this morning because we think that the people will show understanding. The PDP is profiting from the current judgment. Can I ask you? They will say, when you are going to the bush to ease yourself, please take 2 sticks. One may fall, you can use the second one. If PDP loses at appeal court, what will be its stake?
Well, the appeal court is not the final court in any case. However, even if the appeal goes as far as the Supreme Court and the court thinks that thinks otherwise than in agreement with the position of the PDP, then it stays like that at least until 2023, when the people will speak afresh. Okay? Thankfully, there's that opportunity for the people to speak afresh to confirm whether really it was the person that they were in love with in the first place, or it was the party that they were endeared to. And so in 2023, that verdict will be very copiously enunciated. So we are not perturbed at all. We are not losing sleep over what becomes of this matter eventually. However, we know, or we think that what is right is that, given the authorities that have been copiously cited variously, what justice means is that His Excellency David Umahi quit being governor in 2020 when he left the PDP, the platform that accommodated him, and then went to some other place. So that's what I think is justice. But who am I? What can I say?
Well, Okorafor Tochukwu, chairman PDP Ebonyi State, he says, who is he? He is the chairman of PDP in Ebonyi State. And in the past 35, 40 minutes, I've been having a conversation with him on what I call the defection crisis in Ebonyi State. Is it a political crisis or a legal crisis? Of course, you know that this conversation never ends. It rolls on Sunday after Sunday. Okorie, thank you very much for coming to the show.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
My name remains Wabose Njoku. Let's meet next Sunday. Good afternoon.